had on any podcast anywhere in the world, bar none. You are definitely straight at the top of my Christmas list.
There we go, mate. And you'd be pleased to know that that whole thing was on mute as well. So it was actually on mute. So just to say that, I really picked up Ben and realised we were on mute, but we're all good now. Ben. I mean, what a week, right? It's been absolutely crazy.
What a month!
What a month! Fergie. Yeah, but I mean, this last day or two, I've gone from I think I've gone from saving my transfer to -4 to -8, and now I think I'm on a -12. But I'm hoping you're going to be able to give us a bit of news as to why I don't need the -12.
I think you need a magic wand, Fergie, not advice.
Just before we delve into it, for all those who are new to us, if you haven't subscribed yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Set the alerts so you don't miss any of our brilliant Fantasy Premier League content or live streams right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content. It would be much, much appreciated. And the article link that we will be showing now is in the description below and will be updated all day by Ben. So, Ben, we've got the your article now, which obviously you update throughout the day, all day, every day. There's loads of us really interested in in what is going on with all the Premier League teams. So we'll start from the top. We'll work our way down alphabetically. But what's going on at the Emirates with Arsenal this week? They seem pretty stable, if anything, compared to some other teams.
Well, so far as at the time of recording, yes, we're only about 6 press conferences in, so we have a glut of those coming in between sort of 12 and 2 o'clock. So there could be tweaks to these lineups, as we approach the FPL deadline. But yeah, the two main talking points with regards to Arsenal this game week, the left back spot. Kieran Tierney and Nuno Tavares. I've went for Tierney in this option. I still see him as first choice as that long-term option. Tavares did, deserve his place on merit. Yes, Arsenal got the defeated Goodison, but Tierney was off the pitch by then, and I just think his all-round game is a little bit more solid as opposed to Tavares, but he's a great backup. He's a great player to come in. Granit Xhaka was a surprise inclusion on Monday night. Maybe some suggest that could be smacks of desperation from Mikel Arteta, having a player who just returned to the training pitches, and of course after several months on the sidelines. And I've got Aubameyang back in there up top, although it pains me to say it. I've been an Aubameyang owner. He's been pretty poor and deserved to be dropped, but really who comes in to that team? Lacazette didn't pull up any trees. I do have Smith Rowe back in that starting lineup, and that would be in place of Martinelli as long as he can overcome his groin problem. Martinelli has a hamstring issue.
Okay, let's take a look then at Aston Villa. What's going on at Villa Park this week?
Yeah, so a couple of main talking points. The left back spot, we see Matty Targett. He's recovered from, he took an awkward landing, bashed his head. He was removed as a precautionary measure. Ashley Young started at left back last week, but I've got Targett back in there. We also have Danny Ings in and around the first team squad. Obviously, old boys reunion back to Anfield, but I don't think there'll be any involvement from the start. Again, it'll be something that maybe Steven Gerrard manages, and he may look to introduce him. So I have Ollie Watkins leading that Aston Villa front line.
How do you think they're going to get on against Liverpool, Ben, out of interest?
Sorry, Tig, I missed that.
How do you think they're going to get on against Liverpool, out of interest?
Look, I think we need to have one eye on the midweek fixtures. I don't think Liverpool will go all guns blazing. I think they will get the victory. I'm thinking 2-0. And then Jurgen Klopp will maybe look to shut up shop, rest and protect a few players as he maybe, approach maybe 60 or 70 minutes.
Yeah, we're just thinking, of all those Salah captainers, including myself. That's the worry in it. But and Villa have improved. I think they've won 3 out of the 4 now under Gerrard. I think that's right.
They have, and defensively in the main as well. I think under his stewardship, yeah. I think in terms of, I think they're top 4 XG conceded now defensively. So he has really tightened them up. But it's a different level when you go to Anfield in Liverpool, and even with limited minutes, Mo Salah can. He can do it in the blink of an eye, as Sergio Aguero did in his pomp at Manchester City.
Fantastic. Let's move on then to Brentford. Obviously, Tony, who I've held on to him with this, with this Watford fixture in mind, and obviously he gets COVID, and didn't play last week. What's the rest of the news from Brentford, mate?
Yeah, I mean, Sergi Canos came in alongside Brian Mbuemo at Elland Road last week. He picked up his 5th caution of the campaign. So that means that Thomas Frank has a decision to make with regards to who's actually going to play up top with him. He said he's worked on a couple of solutions in training. Marcus Fours being one, and also Ewan Wissa. I've went with Wissa in this instance, but really, I think it is a coin toss. I'm going on history and thinking Wissa will probably just get the nod. And also we have good in that back line, Matthias Janka Jorgensen. It doesn't look like he's going to recover from a hamstring problem with in Christoph Ayer. It's going to be late December before he's back in. Otherwise, the Bees are pretty much unchanged. They've got a solid nucleus of a squad there. So, yeah, don't expect too many changes. Unlucky last weekend.
Well, a lovely comment from Elliot Wright. 2 beautiful and diverse accents. Absolutely. That's lovely. That's the nicest comment we've had for a while, isn't it?
If that's the nicest, then things are really took a turn for the worse.
It's normally because I've forgotten to unmute now in the last 2 streams I've done for a few seconds. Last week I didn't unmute for something like 6 minutes, Ben, which was fun as you can imagine. But this morning, thankfully, it was only 7 or 8 seconds. There's some problems with my mic I have. Anyway, on to Brighton. Obviously, not much point in looking at Brighton. At Brighton now the game is off. What do you think the chances are for midweek as well, Ben?
With regards to Tottenham,
Spurs. Apologies, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be much change with regards to that. We know that players will be self-isolating for 10 days minimum. So really, I think the obvious common sense will prevail, and that will be cancelled again. I actually think everybody was focused on Tottenham, but Brighton actually had the potential of up to 9 players missing for this game as well. 3 of those being at the back with Shane Duffy, Lewis Dunk, and Adam Webster. They're big players, and also Joel Veltman picked up a knock. So that's one to watch midweek. I wouldn't be adverse to going against Brighton given those absences. And of course, that suspension will be carried over for the midweek game. It's games and not days, as questions I've had within the community recently. So unfortunately, Shane Duffy is out of that again after collecting his 5th caution of the campaign.
I can see you've scrambled together a back line of this. It's obviously very difficult to put together some kind of back line, but even with that, they're all defenders, right? And apart from Gross, who's played in that position before, March, he's played there as well, hasn't he? A kind of wing back as well. So they'll have some semblance of a defence, but obviously nothing as strong as they would normally have, right?
Yeah, look, I do like Duffy and Lewis Dunk, even though Duffy's been out of the starting 11 in recent games, but also Adam Webster is a big player. So yeah, they're going to be a miss. But Dan Burns been in and around that first team now for a long time. Joel Veltman's been pretty solid. That you question Lamptey in that back 3, maybe does some of his better work higher up the pitch. So that could be an area that that may be targeted by the opposition. But like I say, we'll see. We've got a couple of days, and in this COVID-ridden climate, who knows what's going to happen.
Madness, absolute madness. Let's move on to Burnley there, mate.
Yeah, now, as a big call, I do have Ben Mee back in the squad. He's been managing a shoulder problem. That would be at the expense of Nathan Collins. Now, Nathan Collins has done a great job alongside Tarkowski, and Sean Dyche is a big fan. I just think, Ben Mee has that experience. He is considered that first choice. So I have brought him back in. And the other main focus would be around Maxwell Cornet. Made a big impact since his arrival at the club. He was forced off at St James's Park with a thigh-related problem, a thigh strain. Player came out on social media and actually played that down, tried to allay fears of anything sort of sinister. But even, a mild grade 1 strain or tear, we're still looking at maybe, at least 7, 10, maybe 14 days on the sideline. So I think this game comes too quick, and Matai Vieira is my preferred option, say, over maybe a Jay Rodriguez.
Fair enough. You ready for that? On to Chelsea. Now we're starting to get into the heavyweights now, and obviously they've had a few problems in central midfield, Ben.
Massive, and I do have Ruben Loftus-Cheek in that central midfield berth as it stands. However, and I'm being extremely optimistic here. What we do know, he was pulled from the squad during the warm-up in Russia. So we don't know what that problem was. I'm hoping, because it was more or less a dead rubber, that it was more of a precautionary move by Thomas Tuchel. So we'll wait to hear from him. If he does miss out, then Saul would be the obvious replacement. Although we did see Reece James, playing centrally in the Champions League. So he is an option, and you could effectively put Azpilicueta on that right-hand side. So, there is a bit of flexibility and fluidity in that Chelsea lineup. Jorginho, again, he's managing an ongoing problem, but I would certainly expect him to be back in the squad. And the other one, of course, is Romelu Lukaku, who I've got down for his first Premier League start since recovering from a high ankle sprain.
Obviously, there's a lot of rotation there. Obviously Werner's back, Ziyech is back as well. It's really tough to call, but you think Lukaku starts then?
Look, I just think he offers a different dynamic to that Chelsea front line. And I think, when you consider their results in recent games, it's maybe something that they've just missed that little bit of cutting edge. And, Thomas Tuchel is a big fan. The issues have always been around, is he fit enough to go out there and compete for 70, 80, 90 minutes? Well, I think we're at the stage now where Lukaku is. And if you have a fully fit Romelu Lukaku, then he starts every single day of the week for me.
Thank you, buddy. Let's take a look at the Crystal Palace lineup this week. It's Everton.
Yeah. Joel Ward for me coming back in at right back. Of course, Nathaniel Klein deputised last week. Ward was suspended. I've also got Joachim Andersen in there. That's a little bit of a gamble at this point. I'll wait and hear what Patrick Vieira says. Again, Palace have had a little bit of a downturn, and James Tompkins has come in and he's done an admirable job. But I just think, building on that early season success, Joachim Andersen was part of that, that solid backline. Other question marks with regards to Milivojevic. I've got him ahead of Kouyaté, and I've also brought Will Hughes into the team. Now, that is a bit of a punty gamble and one that could potentially change. We have seen James McArthur back on the training pitches, but maybe a little bit too soon for him. But look, there are a few options there. Gallagher could swap with Jeffrey Sloop on the other side, but I do think that Christian Benteke keeps his place ahead of Edward.
Just on, from an FPL view, it's been kind of widely touted that Milivojevic, Anderson and McArthur, this whole kind of thing of when they either play or don't play, they do have a big effect potentially on Gallagher's position and output. So in here, I think it's been, since McArthur's been out with the team, Gallagher has probably, dropped a bit deeper. So if McArthur plays, you can probably hope for Gallagher to move forward. But obviously, if Hughes plays instead, then you may, he may see where he is. However, if he was in my team, he's not in my team, but if he was, I'd certainly be playing him against Everton this week. Everton have improved slightly. I think they obviously beat Arsenal, and I think they put a bit of a fight against Liverpool. Just before they were outclassed, but I still think they're quite poor, and I fancy Gallagher to do something this week. Just then on the Everton team, interestingly enough, from the same game.
Yeah, so a couple of issues here. We have Mason Holgate coming into the start 11. That would be in place of the injured Yerry Mina. Yeah. Returned from a hamstring problem on Monday night. We talked about Mikel Arteta taking a gamble. I think Rafa gambled massively on the big Colombian. That backfired. Now, he actually confirmed or said that it was a calf-related issue, but Yerry Mina was seen holding his hamstring twice. And I'm not sure if he's trying a little bit of a core up there, given the fact that Mina was coming back off the hamstring problem. He didn't want to sort of make it be known that it was a recurrence or a re-injury. The other main talking point is at left back, Lucas Digne, omitted from the matchday squad altogether on Monday night. Rafa dealt with all questions with regards to a straight bat. He isn't injured. but I understand that there has been some kind of training ground fallout, and that was his reasons behind his absence. Although, again, nothing official in terms of what's going on and whether he'll be back this week. But of course, that win, I think it's 1 win in 9 now for the Toffees. They will be looking to build on that and hopefully continue that good run forward. But elsewhere, like I say, no major incomings. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is the one that people are desperate to see back. But given the fact that he's had a setback, he won't be rushed, and it's going to be closer to Christmas before he's even getting anywhere near that first team squad.
Abdullah Doucouré just looks such an important player for them, don't he? Ever since he's been out, they've really kind of struggled, and since he's been back, he does give them so much kind of energy and intensity, the field, don't he? If you look at the attack, in terms of Gray Townsend and Richarlison, and Doucouré himself, I think they have got, an opportunity to start scores and goals. And Richarlison was obviously incredibly unlucky not to go a hat-trick on Monday night. He could be when Everton, again from an FPL view, Everton have got a really fantastic run of fixtures on the horizon. From game week 18 onwards, they play Leicester, Burnley, Newcastle, Brighton, Norwich, Villa, Newcastle, Leeds, Southampton. So by that point, it could be that, maybe Damari Gray's very, very cheap, 5.5 million. Maybe Richarlison, maybe Calvert-Lewin will be back. Any more news on Calvert-Lewin? Sorry, Ben, just while we're
there. Look, it's one that we'll take game week to game week. We know about 7 days ago, it was a minimum of 2 weeks. Okay. But I would take those timelines with a pinch of salt, given the fact that, this is a return that's probably went on since October, really.
Yeah. Okay. Let's look at Leeds United this week, who've had some problems this week, haven't they, Ben?
Massive, and 'tis the season of the hamstring, Fergie. We had 3 major sort of setbacks last weekend against Brentford. Liam Cooper, Calvin Phillips, and then the man of the moment, the saviour of the day, Patrick Bamford, comes off the bench after 2.5 months out, scores equaliser, and ping, there we go, hamstring gone.
During the celebration, wasn't it? Not the goal, was that right?
Yeah, that's what I understand. And
me.
I mean, Marcelo Bielsa was typically evasive when asked. It depends on the evolution of the injury and blah, 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 blah. Calvin Phillips, that certainly seems to be the worst of the 3. There's some suggestion that could stretch beyond maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And if so, he may even been sent down for shoulder surgery. That's something that he picked up towards the end of last season. With Bamford and possibly Liam Cooper, we're guessing, we're in between lines, but maybe around 2 to 3 weeks. Even that short period of time could rule them out, for the remainder of this year. So that's a massive blow. Strike at left back, been carrying a bit of a hip problem. I've had to throw him in there because, we're struggling on numbers. Firpo would be the other option, but I just think defensively... Firpo. Yeah, I just think defensively,
he's shit.
He's not that good. Yeah, I'll
he's maybe not up to Premier League standards quite yet.
Not at the moment. And I've went for Tyler Roberts. I have been quite impressed with Tyler Roberts in recent games, certainly with regards to his work rate and his work ethic. He's been in ahead of Rodrigo, but of course now he's out with what the club refer to as I think it's bilateral ankle pain or heel pain. Now, typically when you're looking in and around that area, the 2 most common injuries would be plantar fasciitis or Achilles tendonitis, and that could keep, there's no definitive time frame on that. They respond differently. They ease back on the load, and you assess on a daily basis. It could be 1 week, it could be 5 weeks, it could be 2 months. So that's one to watch. But again, he's not a player that has been pulling up trees, and I dare say he's not going to be a huge miss to that team. I've got Harrison back in as well. He's been another massive disappointment for Leeds this year. He needs to really step up to the plate and start delivering, because Leeds have a horrible run of fixtures coming up, and like I say, they've got several key players missing.
If they didn't have Forshaw back, who's been really good since he's been back, they'd be in a lot of trouble, wouldn't they? Because he's obviously missed a couple of seasons, but he's been good. Just in the chat, John L also, injury, hamstring related Christmas carols, Ben. Oh, come all ye hamstrings. I like that. If anyone If anyone
I'll
else
give that a C plus.
if
C
anyone else
plus.
can come up with any injury-related Christmas carols, do it, and I'll give them a sing-song. Oh, come, all ye hamstrings. There we go. Let's move on to...
It is good. Let's move on quickly.
Leicester City, who last night, I mean, the drama. I don't know if you saw it, Ben. Did you see the drama with Leicester last night?
I didn't. I was actually bashing content out.
Is that what you call it
and,
nowadays?
Well,
that's what the cool kids call it.
Yeah, that was a busy one. So no, I missed that game.
Well, Leicester lost to Napoli 3-2, but they quickly went over to the other game, and I think it was Standard Liège, I think, had a penalty in like the 98th minute, and if Standard Liège had scored the penalty, Leicester would have a chance of progressing, and Standard Liège missed the penalty, which was absolutely incredible. So Leicester went from being out to potentially in to being out all in a space like 30 seconds. It was absolutely mad. Anyway, on to Leicester, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I've actually got Ward in this, and this was done so prior to the news. We know he had a thumb problem. There was talk about maybe sent for x-rays. We know that he's all clear now, so Schmeichel is coming into that team. If we refresh, it will actually show that. Elsewhere, Ryan Bertrand returned to the matchday squad on Thursday evening, but I think it's too soon for him to be starting in back-to-back games. We have Thomas in there. There's also possibilities around Yuri Tielemans. Does he come back? Again, he's starting on Thursday, but he's had quite a while out with a calf problem. So again, there's some question marks with regards to one or two of these players. People may be looking at Jamie Vardy as a player who could potentially be rested. We've seen that the other week, that Brendan Rodgers rested him in that 3-game week. You know, you've got Padson Daka. Kelechi Iheanacho is one of those players, one of several players that were highlighted by Brendan Rodgers to be either illness or COVID-related absence. I mean, there was some talk that possibility of this game could be postponed, but like I say, there's nothing official in terms of that. Those tests will continue. It is one to watch. Like I say, we don't definitively know how many of those are COVID related. So the likes of maybe Ayoze Perez and so on, Vestergaard, they could be in and around that squad. But like I say, this is a story that could continue and evolve, and maybe decisions being made closer to kickoff.
Well, and also obviously Leicester are involved in game week 17 against Spurs as well. Now that is the game you mentioned earlier, Ben, for those who missed it, that we think is probably likely to be called off. We think just because of the isolation period that the Spurs are going to have.
Yeah.
So if you are thinking of bringing Leicester players from an FPL view, we need to bear that in mind. I think for me, if you've got Vardy still, I play in this week against Newcastle. It's a bit of a plum fixture, but as Ben said, and I'm sure we're moving on to some other teams now, starting with N and M and stuff. As we work our way down alphabetically, there could be a few more issues to kind of talk about, in relation to COVID and things. So let's have a look firstly at the Liverpool lineup, and the first thing for me, Ben, Diego Jota starts up front. Thank goodness for that. All my prayers are answered.
So this is an ongoing development story, and as we know, I'm dealing with information to hand, and I don't want to try and get too involved in the rumours with regards to his absence from training. You understand that he hasn't been taking part in training this week. Now, typically, just to give a little bit of context and understanding, when you talk to medical teams, what they will say is, and the player needs to take part in that final session to come into consideration for that match day. And of course, the final session for Liverpool is on Friday. We'll hear from Jurgen Klopp around about 12:30. Now, that will hopefully give us some kind of definitive answer, ideally, or at least we might have an understanding of what the situation is with regards to Diego Jota. A worry for owners would be the return of Roberto Firmino. He's back on the training pitches, and we consider Mo Salah and Sadio Mane as those two players that you would lock in, with Jota and Firmino, when fully fit, as the ones that tend to sort of flip-flop and swap between. So for now, he's in, but like I say, it's a cool Jota. We're not hot on him at this precise moment. And yeah, that's not one that's locked in. That there are big concerns and worries with regards to this.
And more importantly, back to the injury-related Christmas carols. John L says, "Silent Night" from Tottenham's Tottenham's the training ground at the moment, and Jason Sillin. So here is Merry Christmas. Everybody's having fun. Look to the future now because Leeds are looking bum. And John L sings, I wish it could be game week 16 every day. And just a dad post and stuff. Just hits roasting on my FPL fire. Red arrows nipping at my toes. This is what it's all about, mate. This is content.
This is getting me excited. This
is bashing out content, literally. Let's move on to Manchester City. So I had Jota in my team, and I've also got Foden in my team, and I notice he's not in your starting 11.
Yeah, so this is one that I have actually sort of made an educated guess, let's say, ahead of Pep's press conference. We know that he was forced off midweek with an ankle problem. Pep said it was a precautionary measure, but if you look at the build-up to in recent game weeks, he picked up that knock for England. That also kept him on the sidelines. So this is a worry, and you just look at the strength and the depth of this Manchester City team. And for me, Pep doesn't need to be taking any risks whatsoever. I don't really understand the lineup that he went with RB Leipzig midweek. Like I say, I think there was one or two players that he potentially could have rested, Foden being one of those. And yeah, look, with a midweek game coming up, I think it just makes sense to focus on these players who are fully fit, who can do a job. And look, if these players are held out for a game for an additional couple of days, well, City have the City second string, if you can even consider that, is probably a top 6 side in itself anyway.
It is, and that and that would include. So if this, it's obviously impossible to call this 11, especially at this time of year. But obviously De Bruyne and Foden to come in. I suppose being a Foden owner, I would rather him miss this game and play against Leeds. I suppose because obviously Wolves have been quite good at the back, haven't they? So it's be a tough game for City, I think. So yeah, that's from a Foden owner view. Man City in this new fandangled 4-2-2-2 formation. What's the news from Old Trafford, where they are going to be playing away to Norwich?
So Ralph Rangnick sort of suggested or hinted that what team he'd go with by making 11 changes in the Champions League. So I expect United to revert back to the team that edged past Crystal Palace. We obviously seen the return of Luke Shaw and on the opposite flank, Aaron Wan-Bissaka midweek. But for me, Alex Telles deserves his spot in that team. And also Aaron Wan-Bissaka, you may have missed it. He was stretchered off late in the games following a collision with advertising hoardings. That knock and another knock that he had picked up may be enough just to sort of convince Ralph Rangnick that he maybe isn't ready or shouldn't be risked. So I've got Diogo Dalot in that team, and he's a great cheap way into that back line, and against a Norwich team where you could be fairly confident that there's maybe some good clean sheet potential there, but also he loves to maraude forward, and potential maybe there for some offensive returns as well.
What are your thoughts on Dalot? So I hear that Wan-Bissaka is very likely missing this weekend anyway, but for those looking to bring Dalot in, maybe even myself this week, do you think he keeps that place? Is it his place to lose at the moment, or as soon as Wan-Bissaka is back, will he be back in that position?
Look, I don't see a great deal of difference between the two players anyway. It's not like Wan-Bissaka has been this shining light, this standout performer that's consistently delivering and claiming the headlines. So him being fit and available, I don't think that there's no guarantees that he comes into that team. I think Dalot is he's there on his merits. If he can keep on performing, then maybe I'm a little bit old school with regards to this, and think that players are deserve to stay in that team. And then look, I think he is worth a punt. And looking at the way the fixtures are, I think he's a great option, and I would be happily take the punt.
He could be part of a -12 for me today. If Jota is out, if he's confirmed out, if they say look he's injured, he's going to be out for 2 or 3 weeks, I'll take the -12 today, and he's part of that. Just to let everyone know, spoiler alert, I'll be revealing all later, and this obviously all depends on what we get from the team news. But I think I'm going to take out Son, Tony, Rudiger, Sanchez, and Jota, if Jota's injured, to De Gea, Dallo, Bernardo, Bowen, and Cristiano Ronaldo. That's my minus 12 if these players have ruled out. Quite,
So
Ben, you're puffing your cheeks there. What do you think of
that? Do you know what? And I bang the drum about taking hits all of the time, and it's in particular in and around this time of COVID, injuries, suspensions. Sometimes, for me, I think it's wise to maybe just err on the side of caution. You know, if you haven't got 11 players going into a game, then fair enough. But if you've got your 11 and you've maybe got one or two players on the bench who can come in, then for me, you know, I think I'm just keep your powder dry and just keep moves to a minimum in those essential ones, because whatever's covered in the press conferences, whatever's picked up by everybody and everywhere on social media, there are always one or two players that slip through the net.
that? I agree.
And like I say, you don't want to be taking a -8 or a -12 for then, you know, for it to end up with still having maybe 9 or 10 players playing, because that's like an arrow in the heart. So for me, I like to gamble, I like to take risks, but around taking hits at this time of year, I do play the game a little bit more conservatively. Sorry.
No. I really appreciate you pissing on my chips on this Friday morning. just a bit more on the songs. Colin Buger, it's beginning to look a lot like a -12. Just very, very topical there. Stephen Moore. So here it is. Merry Christmas, everybody selling sun. That is absolutely fantastic. Well done.
Like that one. That's probably one of the best.
B plus. It's good, and we'll just do one more. This is just a dad posting stuff. We're flying down the ranks. This to the tune of Snowman. I'm not going to sing it, am I? We're flying down the ranks. We're flying in a red arrow dream. I'm sick of all these blanks and fed up with my team. Absolutely fantastic. And as someone else said, right. We're not going to put FPL Pig out of a job, are we? Newcastle. Against Leicester, buddy. Are they going to turn it around?
Of course so. I mean, we'll not turn it around by, massively. I think we'll survive. I think we're in that 15th to 17th place. Do we change a winning team, our first clean sheet of the season? Absolutely not. I mean, I would prefer Fernandes in there ahead of Fabian Shaw, but it doesn't look like Eddie Howe's going to go down that route. It's going to be tough, but I don't think Leicester are great shakes. I think Brendan Rodgers under a little bit of pressure. They're there for the take, and I fancy Newcastle to take a point, if the truth be known, down at the King Power. Okay,
let's move on to Norwich, and there is an emerging story from this morning, Ben, about Norwich.
There is, and it's been, I suppose, dressed up as a COVID-related story. Again, given it's a hot topic of conversation. It is and it isn't COVID-related. What's happened is 2 players have presented this morning and they don't feel very well. They haven't submitted any lateral flow tests. They haven't done a PCR. They've been taken away from that environment and placed in isolation purely as a precaution. Now, that's not to say that won't develop and, they may subsequently submit a positive test. It's just that, they're not feeling 100%. So they're taken away from the group and absolutely no chances of being taken. So that's first and foremost. Dean Smith wouldn't tell us who those players were, or indeed a couple of players who are managing minor knocks. So we'll stick to what we do know. Brandon Williams at left back, he's unable to face his parent club, Manchester United. So you have Giannoulis. I've definitely nailed that name there, by the way. He comes in at left back. And it was hoped that Matthias Norman would recover from an ongoing persistent hip problem. Met with a specialist last week, had an injection with a view to, facing United. But unfortunately, it's going to come a little bit too soon for him. Possibly Tuesday, I think it's against Villa. So we've got Lucas Roop in there as well. we need goals in this Norwich team. I think we'll be a little bit different from the setup with Tottenham. They were exposed probably for the first time under Dean Smith, and they went with 5 at the back. So I see a shift more towards that flat back 4 and maybe just a little bit more attacking, hopefully from the Canaries to maybe grab something. But like I say, I fancy 3 points for Manchester United.
Indeed. Just so everyone knows, if you want to view this article for yourself, the link is in the description below. It's at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/Premier League predicted lineups, and Ben keeps it updated absolutely all day. So once the press conferences are going on, he'll update it again and update it just for the deadline. So it is the single source of truth for all the predicted lineups and injury news for the Premier League. Also, if you are enjoying the stream and you haven't yet, please press the like button. It would be much appreciated as we go through the remainder of the teams. Southampton next face Arsenal, a defeated Arsenal from Monday night.
Yeah, look, where do we start? Willy Caballero, 40-year-old veteran keeper, signed earlier this week. Ralph Hasenhüttl has basically said that he will start this weekend. We know Alex McCarthy's probably going to be missing for up to a month. And also Fraser Forster, the game's going to come too soon. Tried him out on the training pitches this week. It's no good. So Caballero in goal. Last time he played competitively was September 2020. In the heart of defence, I've also got 2 changes in there as well. Salazar, he picked up his 5th caution of the campaign. Now that opens the door for Jan Bednarek. He's recovered from a calf problem. His fitness is a little bit ahead of Jack Stevens. He had been out with a hamstring and knee problem recently, returned to the matchday squad. Maybe his match fitness and sharpness isn't where it needs to be, but I think he does offer that a great defensive pair. And so I'm throwing him back in there for that little bit of experience to cover. In centre midfield as well, we've also lost the Spaniard, the enforcer, Oriol Romeu. He's another one that got his 5th caution of the campaign. So I've started Diallo in there. Elsewhere within that team, there's some suggestion that maybe, there'll be a late decision with regards to Shea Adams. He was pulled from training on Wednesday. We don't have any further insight with regards to that issue. Of course, that would mean that probably Adam Armstrong would come in alongside Armando Broja. Left-hand side of midfield, I still have Nathan Teller in there, but you could be looking at the likes of Gineppo, Elyounoussi, Smallburn in and around there, Walcott on the opposite flank for Redmond. So again, there's not a great deal between these players, and Ralph Hasenhüttl would cut his cloth accordingly, given the fact that we do have a midweek fixture coming up as well.
Fantastic, thank you, buddy. Spurs, obviously, no game now in game week 16, but can you update us just a little bit more, maybe, Ben, on what's going on there?
So we have 13 confirmed cases of COVID, 5 of those applicable to the backroom staff, and the rest of first team. Now, officially confirmed was Emerson Royal and Brian Gill. They both missed out against Norwich last weekend. And the rest, and we're, like I say, we're reading between the lines in terms of what we've observed from players on the training pitches. But Heung-min Son is one of the standout players that we can list. Sergio Relegón, he was a thigh injury, hasn't been there. Christian Romero is another player that's apparently tested positive, but we know he's sidelined anyway with a knee problem. There's also talk about Dane Scarlett, Oliver Skip.
Lucas Moura one as well.
Lucas Moura as well. So yeah, I mean, these are all players that we haven't seen on the training pitches. But as with the incident with Jota, and as we always say, these pictures are taken at a snapshot at a specific moment in time. Yeah. And while it seems highly likely that these players, are indeed players that have tested positive, we cannot be 100% certain.
John says, Ben saying Hasenhüttl is like any Geordie saying Kawasaki. Brilliant. Love that. Absolutely love that. Watford, mate, play Brentford this evening in the early game.
A couple of changes I've got to have in this lineup. I mean, with regards to anybody returning, Ken Sema has been training with the squad this week. He's pushing for an inclusion in the matchday squad. Too soon for a start. Bless you. Elsewhere, I'm just looking at maybe how. Bless you again. I do have Christian Kabasele in that backline ahead of ahead of Troost. And Kabasele has been in and around that squad now for a week or two. It's just been a case of building up that fitness and that sharpness. I do think he is that preferred starter ahead of Troost, so I have him back in the team. And I've also thrown Tufan back in there, maybe a little bit of a gamble at the expense of Tom Cleverley. So again, there isn't a great deal between those sort of players in and around that midfield area, and Claudio Ranieri, maybe looking at, this game as well as midweek game in terms of managing player load.
Fantastic. Thank you, Ben. We come on to the Hammers. So I've already got Antonio in my team. I'm looking at bringing in Bowen. Is that a move that Ben I should be making?
I thought you were going to sneeze again. Are you going?
Oh, I've got. So apologies for all those listening. I'm just coming off the back of a horrendous cold this week, and I'm just at that last stage of coughing up all the final bits of stuff of my lungs. So
that's probably too much information. Look, I absolutely love Jared Bowen, and while people are gravitating, and rightly so, to the Mikel Artunio, after a slow start to the campaign, I think Jared Bowen's hit something like, am I right in thinking it's 57 points from maybe game week 5 onwards? So he's in great form, and he was rested on Thursday night. David Moyes, looking ahead to these fixtures, keeping these players fresh. So great pick for me. Defensively is where the Hammers' problems are lying at the moment. We know we've lost Ogbonna for the season. Zuma's going to be out for a fair while. Ben Johnson also picked up a hamstring issue. Now, we haven't seen Aaron Cresswell in the squad in recent games. Picked up a back problem, collision with a post, maybe game week, was it 14 possibly? Nothing too serious. He has been involved in aspects of training. So I'm hoping his absence on Thursday evening was, like I say, just a way of protecting him, given the fact that they're already suffering several injuries in that back line.
Okay, superb. And Wolverhampton Wanderers, mate.
Conor Cody looked as if he was going to come off against Liverpool last weekend, but battled on through. And that's an ankle problem that he's been managing now for the last sort of 3 to 4 weeks. So yes, he's limping through, but he's a warrior, is Conor Cody, and he's somebody that I fully expect to be in that squad. Left-hand side of midfield, that Ait Nouri. At the minute, I've got the jersey on him. We're waiting for an update. He was a player that picked up a knock late on. And of course, Mark Cal would be the player that could potentially come in for him. Mark Cal, if he's cleared post-COVID as well. So, that's an area that we could potentially flip-flop as well. Then Donka, I've got out of the starting 11 because that's Moutinho coming back in after he was rested. The only other place that we tend to be seeing up for grabs is in and around where Adama Traore is. We've seen Trincao or Daniel Podence, playing there. So at the minute, against these sort of better teams, I see, Wolves playing a little bit deeper and using the explosive pace of Traore to try and break through those lines. And that's why I've got Traore in for this game, to try and cause, City 1 or 2 problems on the counter-attack.
Fantastic. Well, that is it from us for today. Thank you so much, Ben. I know it's been incredibly difficult, and I know I've been asking you a lot of questions that you can't possibly know the answers to, but really appreciate you coming on this morning with all the up-to-date news. Obviously, all the press conferences will be happening in the next 3 or 4 hours. Ben will update that article, as we said. It's a fantasyfootballhub.co.uk/Premier League predicted lineups. The link is in the description below. Make sure you have it. Make sure you bookmark it. It is going to be updated every single week now with the lineups going forward off the same URL. So make sure you do that. Thank you so much, Ben. Obviously, really, really appreciate.
Pleasure. Enjoyed it. As always, time. Fergie.
As always, mate. Well, it's hardly a chore, let's be honest. Especially with me, mate. Giving you all giving you shit for 45 minutes and singing crappy injury-related Christmas carols.
Well, there is that, mate. There is that. Come back, James. All is forgiven.
Exactly, yeah. If you liked what you watched, please press the like button. It would be much appreciated. And remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen if you don't already, for plenty of FPL content. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram and TikTok are at FFH_HQ, so give us a follow on those channels. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you will find everything you need for Fantasy Premier League and Fantasy Football all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, points predictions tools, predicted lineups, and much more. Everything you need for Fantasy Football all under one roof. To join the tens of thousands of other fantasy managers and sign up to the hub to use all our amazing resources, just click the top link in the description below. We will be back next week previewing the coming game weeks. Goodbye for now.